Welcome to Healing Whole, the podcast. I'm your host, Callie. I'm a certified personal trainer and fitness instructor. I also happen to be extremely passionate about holistic living. With close to 10 years of experience, I've worked with clients from all walks of life. I also know a healthy and holistic lifestyle can be a little overwhelming. I'm here to break it down for you and take you on my journey to healing whole. Remember, the materials and content within this podcast are intended as general information only and are not to be considered a substitute for medical advice or treatment. Hello and welcome to episode 16 of Healing Whole, the podcast. I am here today with Kate Markovitz. She is an executive director with Beautycounter and she is also my mentor. So how are you today, Kate?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am very good. So we're going to get into all the fun stuff with Beautycounter today. But first off, I wanted to kind of ask you how you got into this holistic way of living.
Oh, that is a loaded question, right? So I'm going to rewind it all the way back to like high school. I really struggled with orthorexia throughout high school and college.
What's orthorexia?
I was going to say, I'm not sure if you or your audience is familiar. It's basically like an obsession with healthy eating and exercise, but it's like almost to where it takes over your whole life. So I wasn't doing it from a health standpoint necessarily. It was from like control. I was afraid if I like ate the wrong thing, something terrible was going to happen. So it was like controlling my aesthetics. I would work out like 3 times a day, like in between classes in college. It was crazy. It just like overtook my whole life. And from the outside, people thought I was like super healthy because I was, working out and always the one that was making good eating choices, but they didn't know just how it consumed me my whole life. And so when I got out of college, my husband and I had moved away from our families and I was just really struggling. I taught high school math and I wasn't teaching anymore. And I just, started to find this passion for nutrition because it was something that was always part of my life. I just never had really thought about it in that way. And I discovered the Balanced Bites podcast, which is no longer a podcast, but Diane Sanfilippo and Liz Wolfe. And I was listening and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're saying to eat eggs and they're saying to eat this and that. And like, it was blowing my mind because it was a lot of things that I did not do or did not believe. And so I fell down this rabbit hole of really nutrition first. I ended up becoming a nutritional therapy consultant through the NTA. And then opened up my business that way. And that just opened the door to then looking into products and people were asking me for recommendations. And I felt like I was a little bit maybe before the time of people really thinking about all of this. And so I kind of naturally became an expert in quote unquote holistic living. I mean, now most people know me more as Holistic Kate than anything else. And I suppose I should mention that I even feel like I've grown even beyond that, where now I think of holistic as just like, let's look at the big picture. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be like the crunchy, hippy dippy person, which I was for a long time. I only used coconut oil for like life. And then now it's kind of like, I make conscious decisions. I make sure I'm informed. And I really try to live from a place of like health first. And sometimes that means I eat the brownie because it's going to help my mental health that day.
For sure, for sure.
So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I probably rambled on forever.
No, that's great. So go back really quickly. You said NTA, that's Nutritional Therapy Association.
Yep.
So can you give me a little insight into kind of what they teach? Because I also found paleo and that kind of, I did the whole low fat diet kind of thing.
Same.
Yeah, until I found Diane and Liz as well. I found Diane first and then I found the podcast.
Okay.
But I was working at a Barnes & Noble in Washington State and I was just looking for cookbooks and Diane's for some reason just popped out at me. And I was like, I'm going to look at this book. And it changed my life when it comes to food.
So do you remember what year you got it?
2014.
Okay, so that was like right after really she had written it. Oddly enough, my sister-in-law gifted me Practical Paleo for Christmas that year just because she knew I was starting to get into nutrition. And this is just a funny story. I'm obsessed with the Royals and like Kate Middleton.
You kind of
And
look
I
like
read
her.
an article somewhere that she ate paleo, and I was like, what is paleo? I have to find this. And like, that's kind of like, truly, this is like all coming full circle of how I ended up getting that book. But
Great. That's a good story. So tell me a little bit about NTA, Nutritional Therapy Association, like what they kind of stand for and what you learned there.
yeah, so I did that program in 2015. I was actually teaching. I went back and taught a little bit online, and so it's like an ancestral approach to health. Basically, looking at foundations being like digestion and blood sugar, and really going back to like what did our ancestors do. Weston A. Price, I don't know if you know his name. They take a lot of his principles. We studied him a lot, and it's just talking kind of like really stepping back and saying like what is food, and kind of like is it what we're seeing out there now. And it's really awesome. I loved the program. To my knowledge, I think they have sort of changed the program that I went through. It's now fully online. We did have an in-person meeting, so it is slightly different, but I think the principles are pretty much the same, and it really goes back to like the ancestral health movement.
It seems like a great program. I've researched it a lot. I'm actually doing.
I mean, I can't say enough good things about
Yeah.
it, truly. I felt like it was worth every penny for the knowledge that I got. I really was able to build a sustainable business afterwards. But there were people in there who were just, their son or daughter was always sick, and they were just trying to learn, like, how can I make food for my son or daughter? Like, where do I start? Like, and it really changed my approach to pretty much everything, because even after I went to the NTA, like I was mentioning the orthorexia, like I still kind of had that in me. Like it's still like everything still had to be perfect. And if I wasn't eating exactly what they told me, I felt like I was somehow failing. And so I've had to learn a little bit of like how to not be so dogmatic. And I think going through that program and being able to see like every person is so different, it really helped me. And I'm super glad now to have that knowledge, especially having a daughter myself. And like, I've made everybody in my family basically take like our NutriQ, we called it, to basically rank how everybody's foundations were. So it's very informative. It was a great program.
Awesome. So do you think that you've overcome tell me what it is called again?
Orthorexia. So you'll definitely have to look it up. And because I actually was on a podcast not that long ago talking about like that whole journey, because a lot of people don't really know what it is. And I think it presents itself as health. So it's like, I think you almost don't know that you're out of it until you are out of it and you can look back. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what kicked me out of it was getting pregnant, because I was so sick. I was basically on a couch for the entire pregnancy. And that was the first time in my life where I couldn't work out and I couldn't eat what I wanted to eat. And it really just started having me question, like I lost a lot of my identity. I was the girl who worked out all the time. I was the girl who ate healthy. And now I was the girl who was stuck on the couch. And I lost that identity, but it had me confront a lot of the I don't know what you want to call them, like the monsters I had inside surrounding it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that like eating healthy and working out is bad. I think that's like the hard part. It just like, there has to be a balance. Your whole day can't be ruined if you miss a workout. You can't punish yourself because you went to a wedding and you enjoyed the food and the beverages there. And I can proudly say my brother-in-law just got married over the weekend. This is like the first wedding in my whole life, or big event, where like I literally didn't like sit down and make some type of like schedule of how I was going to like work out so I looked a certain way, or like eat so I looked a certain way. It was just the wedding came and I was who I was, and it was very freeing, I have to say.
Good for you. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. That's really wonderful. So let's get into Beautycounter a little bit. Tell me how you found Beautycounter.
That story's a little funny too.
I love funny stories.
Yeah. So, okay, I mentioned Diane, which is perfect because she's a huge part of this. At the end of 2015, when I finished the NTC program, I actually got laid off that summer from teaching. The school just cut budgets, and it was like the top or the bottom 40 people were all gone. And I was like, okay, I didn't really want to do it, but it was like my safe zone. Like I didn't have to go pursue my own business because I had this like job. And now I was like, crap, I really got to go do this thing. And like that week, Diane posted that she was hiring on her team. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to apply. I don't think I'll ever get it. And I ended up getting the job. I was running around my house like a crazy person. I felt like I was like working for Oprah. Like it was just like, oh my gosh, this is the woman who changed my entire life. And now I'm going to be on a weekly call with her, which is so funny because I like took 45 minutes to get myself all dolled up before our first call, and like everybody shows up like from the gym, you know, and I am looking like a glamorous, like I'm about to go to a wedding. But so I was on her team, and she like said to me, hey, Liz gave me this charcoal bar, like I really love, like I'll send you a sample or something, you want to try it? I'm like, no, I'll just go buy it. So I went and bought one. I'm like, oh, because again, this was at the point where I was basically using coconut oil, and I lived in Florida, so I looked like a hot mess because you're just sweating all the time. And I never felt clean. And I tried it and was like, oh my gosh, my skin feels clean. Like, what is this? So I just saw that there was an opportunity. I thought it was like an affiliate program. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go be a consultant. Okay. And I like signed up. Literally, that's what happened. I was like, I'm going to have to know about this because Diane's starting to talk about it. And I did a lot of her emails and like blog posts and things. So I had to know about it. But then, it was like, that was a pivotal moment because this has been able to really change a lot of things I've been able to do with my life.
Well, you're doing so well. It seems like you've built a really amazing team. But
yes, I love leading a team. I did go back to get my master's in organizational leadership. I thought I wanted to be like a business consultant. So in a way, this really takes a lot of what I learned. Like, never saw that coming, but
yeah, that's perfect. This goes with that so well.
Yeah, totally.
But I think a lot of the reason why a lot of people join is because of the mission, which kind of pulls this into the holistic living realm.
Totally.
What is, and I know what it is, but I want you to tell me what it is. What is Beautycounter's mission?
Yeah, so Beautycounter's mission is to get safer products into the hands of everyone. And I always put the disclaimer that they're not saying Beautycounter products. So our mission is not to get the logo Beautycounter onto your countertop. It is the ability for you to go into a store and know that all of the products on the shelves are either being fully transparent, so you can flip them over and understand what the ingredients are, or not be reading something like fragrance, which can be 3,000 different combinations of chemicals. So things are more transparent so that the companies are held more accountable. Right now there's hardly any regulation in the beauty industry, and so it's kind of like the wild west out there. People can do what they want with their formulas. They can maybe say that they're testing once the first time they ever do a batch, and then like switch the products around, don't have to retest. So there's a lot of shady things that can happen within the industry. And Beautycounter is really trying to advocate for more protective laws within the industry, really trying to push the envelope, be a leader, and show like, hey, you can create safer products that perform just as well, if not better, than a lot of the conventional products. And so it's a really fantastic mission. I always say one of the reasons I love being involved is because, well, first of all, here I am trying to build my own business. But if I wasn't doing that, like, this is what I would have wanted to build. Like, they have integrity, they're transparent, they're really trying to, like, they're creative. I love their branding. Like, there's so many things about the company that's just really, truly awesome. And it's founded from a female, which I just love too. And she's a mom. She's got 3 kids. I'm like, it's so inspiring because it is not easy. But I feel really empowered and just like grateful to be part of a company like this.
Me too. I told you that I looked into it for like a year and I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. And I started with a charcoal bar too, a little sample of the charcoal bar.
It's like the gateway drug.
Yeah.
The gateway product.
And it lasts forever. It lasts for so long. But I started with that, and then I got a sample of something else, and I loved it, but I was still like, oh no, it's fine. I'll keep using my coconut oil and my essential oils. And not that there's anything wrong with that. There's not. They're great. But my skin personally needed something a little bit more, and I was finally like, I'm ready for this. Let's do it.
Like I really think that I hear that story a lot with not only women on the team, but people I talk to. They're like, I really want to do it, but I'm nervous. And I think it's a little bit of timing. Like I kind of have that, I'll take the risk, see what happens. If it doesn't work out, all I've really lost is some money maybe. And I feel like, to me, money is renewable. I'll go work hard and make more. Like I'm just like, it's all right. Like I'm not going to invest my entire life savings, but I'll spend a couple $100s for something I believe in. But it just is it's a good movement. Like you start to feel value, even just what you're doing, even just in what you're sharing and what you're using, and knowing that the more voices we have, the more support we have for this kind of mission, the more people are going to have to listen. And that's kind of what drives me too, is like, we can't do this with 10 people. You know, we can't do this with a couple thousand people. Beautycounter is very new. Like I think 6 years, our 6-year anniversary was this past year. So to give some perspective though, I think there's about 40,000 consultants, 45,000 maybe at this point between Canada and the US, which is the only two places we are right now. There's 50,000 Avon consultants just in Dallas, Texas.
Wow.
Right? So like, because I always thought, you know, in kind of the holistic nutrition space, you're like, well, that blogger talks about Beautycounter, or that person talks about Beautycounter, and you feel like, oh my gosh, everybody knows about this. Even I sometimes feel like that. And then like I step out into my neighborhood, I'm like, I'm probably the only person in this neighborhood that uses Beautycounter, right? And I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and like, you know, I asked them if we could have a training. I was like, I'll lead the training. They're like, there's not enough people there for it to make sense. And I'm like, what? Like, how is that even possible? So there's so much work to be done. And it's just still such a new company. The mission is still very new. But what's exciting is in 2019, I feel like there has been so much press around clean beauty. And I think Beautycounter is really responsible for that. They were the #1 trending brand in 2018. So people are starting to hear that. They're starting to get it. And we're really kind of like pushing the envelope even within, you know, these types of businesses, I guess you could say. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. So going back to talking about like how the beauty industry is like the wild, wild west, there are only 30 ingredients that the US bans, something like that?
Correct. Yeah. So the UK is about 1,400, Canada 600, and the US is 30. And we were at 11 not that long ago. So, and that's only like partially banned or restricted. It's, you know, it's not even like, okay, this is like, we should all feel safe because we have 30 ingredients banned, because as a perspective, there's over 80,000 chemicals on the market. So 30, 80,000, we have a huge gap. And it's going to take a long time to kind of catch up with all of that, but we have to get the conversation started because real impacts are happening. It's not really like the company, like, I have some naysayers, I guess, in my life, and I don't want to say naysayers, that's not the right word. They're questioners, right? So they have to know everything, and they're like, if somebody says something that is like kind of like this, like Beautycounter saying, like, all these things are happening, let's wake up and change and push the envelope. They're like, well, how do you know they're not just like saying that? And the cool thing about Beautycounter is like, they really do pull all the resources. It's not like they're just saying anything. In fact, here's a good example of this. There's an internet meme, which I was guilty of repeating, and I've seen people on my team, and I have to be like, tap, 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 like, oh, that's not actually true, don't say that. That anything you put on your body gets absorbed in 26 seconds. Have you heard that one?
I heard it from you, yeah.
Yeah, so that's not true. It's basically Beautycounter, what they did is like they saw Beautycounter consultants saying that, and they sent out an email to everyone, and they said, listen, like, please go behind the counter, make sure you're using factual information, like, we're trying to educate you. And they're like, there are some products that are designed to sit on top of your skin and not be absorbed. So like, you put it on your skin and it doesn't absorb because it's not supposed to. So that's not actually factual. And that was like one of the moments where I was like, wow, this company's trying to do something different. They're not going to just let people say whatever they want so they can sell a body lotion.
Exactly.
and it also reminded me that they're really trying to make sure that they use what they know to be true.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm educating myself right now on everything, on the mission, on the products, on what to actually say and what not to say as far as what's factual and what's truthful. And it is a lot of information. It's really like I'm going through school. I feel like I'm going through school again.
Yeah, I mean, because I remember the big one too. Like I see a lot of people say things are non-toxic. And it's like, water can be toxic if you take in too much. So you have to be really careful with that word. And sometimes I think it's a little hard because it's like, to a layperson who doesn't have that information, when you use the word non-toxic, like they understand that. Like that to them means like safe or clean, or you know what I mean? And so it can be really hard. You just always have to be mindful of the audience, and I try to kind of explain it in that way, that it's like I use the word safer a lot and I use the word clean a lot. Those are like my big words that I use for Beautycounter, and also just transparency. Like I know you and I talked about it, that what I really love about Beautycounter is that they take nature, so they take ingredients from nature, like organic, natural ingredients, but they also combine it with safer science. So like, you don't want to make things without preservatives. Like it's good for all of us to have preservatives in our products, but what's the safest preservative? Or what's a preservative that hasn't shown to be harmful to humans? Like that's what we'll use in the products versus some chemical storm that's cheaper,
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was one thing that I had to like really understand too, because when you come from using coconut oil and you're totally freaked out about like everything in your food and in your products, it was like I remember the first time I looked at a Beautycounter, I think actually when Diane sent me the charcoal bar, the charcoal mask, and I was like, well, I don't know what the heck some of these things are. Like I don't feel like I should use this. And then I listened to Liz talk about it a lot, that there are safer synthetic, ones that are made in a lab, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're harmful, especially if you're putting them on your body versus like ingesting them and eating them. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then the other thing is because we are sending our products to Canada and, hopefully expanding elsewhere, they do use like the international way of talking about ingredients. And I should have probably pulled one out, but like, some of them are going to be like some super, how like in 8th grade science, you had like I'm going to say this wrong, the genus and the species, and it sounded like Homo sapien and like human being kind of thing. It's like that they have that for ingredients as well, where we might look at it and be like, oh, that's shea butter. Like I read shea butter, but if you translate it into like the international form, it might look like something that's a chemical.
Yeah,
so I had to learn that too. And that's why I like having Beautycounter consultants, because you can educate and be like, well, hey, just because you might not understand what that is, like we can look it up, and Beautycounter has a whole ingredient glossary on the website that kind of tells where it's sourced from, why they use it, and what products it's in.
I love the idea of consultants too, because I live in a small town and they're never going to open up a Beautycounter store in my small town. But people aren't going to get educated on that. But because I'm a consultant in the small town, I can now educate people about the mission and about the products and about safer skincare.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard Greg. So Greg Renfrew is the CEO. And there was a lot of pushback for a while about her. Actually, I don't remember where that was, but she actually said she did not want to create this like MLM type consultant base. She was like, she resisted it. She didn't want to do it. She wanted to have control over companies. She didn't want other people talking about it. And then they realized, like, if you just put Beautycounter products on a shelf next to Clinique and next to Estee Lauder, next to L'Oreal, the mission gets lost. It's not being told. And so they were like, okay, that's where they started to see the value of the consultant. Like you're saying, you can go out and educate people. And I always tell people, I'm not here to get a sale from you. I'm here for you to leave and to understand how to go make better decisions yourself. I think I kind of mentioned that in my journey. Like at this point, it's not about being perfect. It's about making an informed choice. And like sometimes that means that I'll eat something that I would have never even considered to be food a couple years ago, but it's once and I'm not going to die from that one time, you know? So I think I'm getting off course there, but it's so kind of coming back to the consultant base. What I do love though is that they do have these pop-up stores now. So there's one in Nantucket, there's one in New York, one in Denver. And I can't like wait to go to one. But they're like, somebody said to me, well, I thought they didn't want them on the shelves. I'm like, it's just a Beautycounter store. So there's like the missions everywhere. You can go and call your senator in the corner. You can go write a letter from a template that they have. So the mission's not getting lost within a Beautycounter store.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And not only are they doing safer skincare for the body, but they're beginning to do safer packaging.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the wipes, the facial wipes are compostable, correct?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, so they have, we've really moved more recently to more sustainable, recyclable packaging. A lot of people always used to ask about the glass, you know, why were you using so much plastic versus glass? And that's because they didn't actually have a good glass sourcer before, but now they found one in Mexico, so it's actually closer. They don't even have to like ship it via air. It can actually come, so carbon emissions are less. There is no plastic. Like if you get a Beautycounter box, we don't have plastic in there. So they use like the brown craft paper, which I usually reuse to like wrap things and just have a ton on hand. Charlotte draws all over them. So it's like everything, it's not just about like, I don't know, having this flashy, like, you know, we want safer products into the hands of everyone. They're doing it in every facet, even down to HQ. Like HQ, they like were making like they only want so many bags of trash, and they're trying to get more recycle there. And it's really cool when you see like a whole company like actually live up to their mission. I know it's like, wow, am I really saying that? But it's like just true these day and age.
It's absolutely true. Yeah, they like live and breathe their mission, basically.
Right. And I guess I didn't even mention, which this is kind of a big deal, they are a B Corp. And, I always try to support B Corps when I can, but not only are they a B Corp, which you have to have a score of 80 to pass to be a B Corp, but the last time we were tested, we scored a 95. So, nice. And they showed us some of the questions at one of our trainings, and it was like worth like, 0.5 points if like, I can't even remember, maybe something about like recycling or whatever. It was like really hard to earn these points was their point. And so I thought that was really cool because I was like, she wanted to start this, and it was like, it had to be a B Corp from the beginning. Like we weren't going to let this be anything less than that.
Can you explain to me what a B Corp is in case people don't know what that means?
So basically, a B Corp cares about people, planet, and profits equally. So it's not just about like the bottom line. It's about treating people with respect, really including diversity, making sure you're respecting the planet, and like we're talking about the packaging, and even like how you source the products and your ingredients and different things like that. So it's really, it's an amazing, I guess, certification to have. And like I said, it is something that like when I go to a store, I can say like when I had my daughter and I was like looking at all these baby foods and stuff and I'm overwhelmed, and I remember flipping a couple over and I saw they were B Corps, and I'm like, okay. Like, of course I still looked at the ingredients and everything else, but I'm like, all right, well, at least I know that they care. They're a mission-based company. They're trying to do better for this world. And so I feel better to support that company with my dollars than one that I know is just, going out there and not doing the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to have Beautycounter at Wellness on the Yacht, which is going to be, this episode will come out on Tuesday. So it'll be this weekend, technically.
Okay.
So I'm really excited to have you there. It's going to be so fun.
Yeah, I am like super excited. It's been a while actually since I've been able to like get out and do really a vendor show. I spent a lot of time kind of doing more one-on-ones, and so it's going to be really fun. to get outside too. Like I mentioned, I'm from Pittsburgh, so I'm going to get to come to your town and meet a bunch of people there. And I love just connecting and meeting with people, but we'll definitely have some fun things at the booth. So people want to stop by, get some samples. One of the things, I mean, I love the skincare and everything, but I have always loved makeup. That's like what my mom and sisters did growing up. We always gave each other makeovers, and I'm just, a girly girl, and I don't apologize for it. And so it was fun to be able to wear makeup again that I know is being tested for heavy metals and this and that. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I can't wait. And I'm going to be giving away at the booth that you're going to be working, because I'm going to be working the event, so I cannot work the booth.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be giving away a cleansing balm for people who want to stop by and check out the booth. So that's
Awesome.
exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I can give some more product too. There's a lot over here.
Oh, good. All right, we'll look forward to that. So kind of switching gears. You have a daughter who is how old?
So Charlotte turned 2 in May.
Okay.
May 2017 she was born.
And you went through some postpartum anxiety with her, or?
So it was really interesting. I was diagnosed high risk, like I mentioned, at a really hard pregnancy. And then around 30 weeks, I was diagnosed high risk with her. She was IUGR, which is an interuterine growth restriction, and small for gestational age. I was really freaked out. That's like when the anxiety started, because I felt it was like my fault. I couldn't eat. I couldn't make myself do things. So I put a lot of blame on myself for that. And she arrived and she was perfectly healthy, but then oh man, a newborn. She had reflux, she was colic, she wouldn't eat. It was just on and on. And I explained to people, I felt like I was just on a treadmill running as fast as my legs would let me run all day. And so when somebody would come help me, it was like anxiety. And then as soon as somebody would come in and maybe take her for an hour or two, I would just fall into this depression. I can't even take care of my baby. Why is this happening? It was just such a roller coaster of emotions. And I know it's like that for any mom anyway, it was a really difficult journey, and it felt like it took forever to get out of it. But I'm also super grateful that I started talking about it, because that's probably the biggest thing that got me out of it, was just actually verbalizing and talking about what I was going through.
Well, not only are you talking about it now, you made a book.
Yeah, I don't even know what to call it. That's what I'm like. People are like, what is it? I'm like, well, it is a book. It's a spiral bound. It's a coloring book / journal / day-by-day message. So I kind of walk through the first 6 weeks. It's designed for the first 6 weeks. So, because you had a baby, right?
Yes.
Yes. So, those first couple of days, things were happening in my body I did not know were coming. And so I talk about some of those things, but it really is just a support system. I've gotten a couple questions where people are like, is this something I can use if my baby's 4 months old already? And it really is, now that I stop and think about it, because I kind of have themes of relationship communication and healing support and nutrition support, mental health support, all these different facets that really just rock your world when you have a newborn. And it's just about having one little 10 to 15 minutes a day for you to stop and think. And I gave a survey to my audience, so there are quotes in there from other moms just talking about their postpartum experiences. There are some things from just people who I call supportive friends, who are just this is what I love about new moms, or here's what I'd be willing to do for a friend who just had a baby. And just gentle reminders that you're not alone. There have been women who have been going through this forever, and I don't know why we don't talk about it, but we should. And this is step one.
I think it's just the stigma to talk about it. You said, you felt like you weren't a good enough mom. I think it's just feeling like you're not a good enough mom.
Oh my gosh. I said, I think, and the reason I designed it for those first 6 weeks is I really feel like our system is failing new moms, and it frustrates me beyond belief. I'm like, you just literally grew a whole human, another organ, gave birth to both, and then like nobody even checks on you until 6 weeks. Or you take postpartum screenings at your pediatrician, which really, when I look back and when I talk to my therapist about it, it's like that you don't even know that person. So now this like person who you don't really have a relationship with yet is now like screening you, and you're like, I have to be a good mom. I can't really tell them that I'm like struggling, right?
Absolutely.
So you're like, I can't really tell the truth here. Like, I just remember going through that, and like it was so evident to me like what they were trying to get across that I was like, well, I can't admit that, so I'm not going to. So it just, I don't know, I felt really frustrated that I wish there was more support for mom in those first 6 weeks. Especially considering we go like once a week for the baby in the last and it's hard to get to the doctor. I know there's probably so many facets that go into it, but it's just like, we have to start caring about our moms because we're the ones that are raising this next generation, and regardless if you work and whatnot, like you're at home with that baby usually the first couple weeks at least. And so I think if we can get a better conversation started at that beginning point, we're just going to set ourselves up later. And I'm not saying even that like, if I had this, I wouldn't have gone through the anxiety and the depression. I think I just would have realized I needed to be more honest about it, and I needed more support than I was allowing, because that was a big thing too. I'm kind of stubborn. I've always done everything for myself. And now I did not know how to ask somebody for help. I just didn't know how to do it. And so this is hopefully a resource to like nudge people to say like, it's okay to say, I need 30 minutes to myself. Like, somebody come hold this baby for me.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important that you're doing that and showing parents and mothers especially that they need to take time for themselves. And I love the coloring and the journaling aspect of it, because when I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder in November. And I had been misdiagnosed for my whole life pretty much, just as anxiety and depression. But
Gotcha.
It took me some serious self-care, and that was journaling every single morning, writing down my intentions, my positive affirmations, what I'm grateful for every day. So you pulling that into there with coloring and journaling is just fantastic. And then the quotes and things like that, that is what saved me. And I know that that's going to save so many other people.
So I'm really curious about journaling because it has been the biggest impact, like the biggest one habit that I can say in my life has helped me through the hardest times, like no matter what. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it was working out, it was this and that. And I'm like, what was the same is I took time to journal. However, I was just talking to my girlfriend who also has a journaling type product. And I said, why is journaling like the easiest thing to not do? Right? Like, it's the easiest thing to not wake up and do, or when you're feeling good, then you stop. And it's like, then, that's what I have to figure out about this guide is that I need people to do it. Like, it's not just something you read. It's not just something that you look at the question and you just think about it in your head. Like, you have to write it down. It needs to be in front of you in black and white. I really believe so wholeheartedly in the impact of journaling. Because that is, I remember writing over and over again, I am not a bad mom, like when I was really going through that. And eventually, maybe it was a 1,000th time that I wrote it, but eventually it made me realize, I am not a bad mom. I'm worrying about my kid. This is what being a mom is.
That's what makes you a good mom.
Yeah, but it was I had to write it. I had to get it out. And I think journaling is so, so important. And I just really want people to realize it and to do it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to buy a fancy journal. You don't have to buy anything. Just get an old piece of paper, get the mail out, get on the back of envelopes. It's the most accessible thing that we can do. Because I do talk about therapy a lot in my guide. And I remember when my mom was reading through it the first time, she's like, what if somebody can't afford therapy? I said, they can journal. That's all. That journaling really is the act of therapy, with yourself. And you can go back and read it and find the patterns. So I think therapy is sometimes maybe the faster routes because you have another voice hearing you. But if I didn't write it out, I don't think therapy would have helped me the way it did.
I feel exactly the same. Exactly the same. So tell me, because you're going to launch this book, so we're recording this on a Thursday. You're going to launch it tomorrow, right?
Yeah, it goes live tomorrow, the 30th.
So where can people find it?
Okay, so it is going to be on motherhoodgrace.com. It's called the Postpartum Grace Guide. And so I do have the book. I actually am going to have an option for a community group as well. And so I'm really excited to offer that. It does have a price on it because I really want people to take it seriously. I don't want it to just be like another free group online that adds noise. It's going to be very intentional. I have resources in there, and I'm going to be like doing some different interviews and videos myself on topics around motherhood that I think are just really important. So I'm excited to have that, but everything's going to be at motherhoodgrace.com. Fingers crossed, I'm going to get it on Amazon. It's proving to be a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be, but eventually it'll get there.
You'll get there.
And since this goes live, there should be a code LABOR, L-A-B-O-R, that will get 10% off through September 9th.
Awesome.
So,
very exciting.
Yeah.
So is there anything else I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I thought we covered a lot, right?
We did.
Yeah, so I would love to connect with anyone who wants to connect. I'm at Holistic Kate on Instagram. That's where I am like 99% of the time if I'm on my phone. And then you can always email me just hello@holistickate.com too.
Very nice.
I'm happy to connect.
And then you have a blog at just Holistic Kate?
I have holistickate.com, and I'm going to definitely link everything. The Motherhood Grace stuff is definitely going to show up on there. So they'll be tied together if you are looking for more of the motherhood support. But I have tons of blog posts from the past however many years over at holistickate.com.
Yeah. All right, so thank you so much for joining me today and chatting with me about Beautycounter and your book and everything that's going on. And I cannot wait to see you at Wellness on the Yacht.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast, and I hope everybody learned something.
Me too. So thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time on the next episode of Healing Whole, the podcast. Have a good one.